Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. This is News Channel Nebraska. My name's Eric McKay. Let's take a look at our top headlines today. The Nebraska Supreme Court has agreed to hear a challenge on the Protect the Right to Abortion ballot initiative. That filing last week, submitted on behalf of Douglas County resident Carolyn LaGreca, argues the initiative violates Nebraska's single subject rule. A Roman Catholic public interest law firm, the Thomas More Society, filed the lawsuit. They're asking for a rarity in Nebraska, an original action. That's where the Nebraska Supreme Court hears a case without it first being heard in lower courts. Back in July, the state high court sided with the state's attorney general, Mike Hilgers, in upholding a gender-affirming care and abortion law as single subject. You might recall, though, back in 2020, the court ruled a medical marijuana ballot initiative was not. The court will hear 15-minute arguments from each side on Monday. Democrats, meanwhile, doubling down on putting abortion at the center of their pitch to women in key states. The Harris campaign Tuesday launched a 50-stop bus tour focused on reproductive health care. Our Washington correspondent, Julia Benbrook, details why the place they've chosen to start the tour is so significant.
The Harris campaign is launching the Fighting for Reproductive Freedom bus tour.
This tour is going to go to over 50 stops across the country.
And it's kicking off just miles away from former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, a state where most abortions after 6 weeks are illegal.
We are the poster child for the MAGA extremism that has ripped women's reproductive health care decisions from them. A ban so extreme that it is likely that most women don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks.
In the fall, voters in the state will decide on the future of abortion access through a ballot measure that would make abortion legal in the state up to the point of viability, which many experts believe is around 23 or 24 weeks of pregnancy. Polling shows abortion is a top issue this election, and it's one where Trump has struggled to define his position. His suggestion that he might support the Florida referendum that would undo the state's current ban angered some religious conservatives.
It has to be more time, and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
The next day, Trump clarified that he plans to vote no. Florida is just one of several states where voters will have the chance to weigh in on abortion rights in November. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Meanwhile, as abortion takes center stage on the campaign, the Supreme Court handing the Biden administration a victory on abortion referrals. On Tuesday, the SCOTUS supported the plan to redistribute $4.5 million in public health funding that had been designated for Oklahoma. That's because the state bars clinics from giving out a hotline number that patients can use to access information about abortion. Oklahoma, one of several states, including Nebraska, challenging a rule that requires clinics receiving federal family planning funds to offer patients options if requested. Last month, the state filed an emergency request seeking protection for its share of funding, despite the rule. Staying with the presidential campaign, Nebraska once again getting put into the national spotlight this election season. Well, one part of it is, anyway. Randy Kay has more on Nebraska's so-called Blue Dot.
These blue dots are popping up on lawns across Omaha. Signs of a campaign where not only every vote counts, but where every electoral vote is critical.
We debated back and forth, and we went for it and said, well, I think the mystery is kind of cool. And it turned out to be a huge win.
Because it's starting conversations.
Exactly. We had no idea the conversations would go.
And that's the important part, because as soon as you start the conversation, you have a full conversation.
Ruth Hibner Brown and her husband Jason are suddenly having more conversations about the blue dot, symbolizing a Democratic island in a sea of Nebraska red, and the state's unique way of dividing electoral votes.
It's plausible that we could have a tie, and that whole notion of, oh, my vote doesn't matter kind of gets really tossed out the window, because this could be it. This could be the deciding factor.
For all of the pathways for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump to reach the White House, the race for 270 electoral votes could come down to Nebraska's sprawling 2nd District. And here's why. If Harris carries the 3 blue wall battleground states and Trump wins the swing states across the Sun Belt, A single electoral vote surrounding Omaha could keep the race from becoming a 269-269 tie, decided by the House of Representatives.
Well, hello, Nebraska.
A not-so-secret weapon for Democrats could be Tim Walz, who was born and raised here before moving 2 states away to Minnesota. Tony Vargas believes the Harris-Walz ticket will also help Democrats win control of Congress, starting with his race here, which is among the country's most competitive.
We have suburban, we have rural, we have urban, we have all different walks of life, all different races, ethnicities, socioeconomic. But really, this is a truly independent place.
Republican Congressman Don Bacon has thrived and survived politically because of that independent streak of the district. Trump won here in 2016, but lost in 2020. Bacon said Trump runs the risk of losing again if he doesn't focus on inflation and immigration.
When you talk about DEI, race, coming up with nicknames, that doesn't play well in this district. They want to talk about the issues. This is an issue district.
For months, Trump and his allies have sought to change Nebraska's election law and award all electoral votes to the statewide winner, rather than by congressional district, a process shared only by Maine.
You better get me Omaha. Do you understand that?
For now, Republicans are working to defeat Harris here in a district that extends through Omaha's western suburbs to rural towns like Wahoo, where Stephen and Sonia Peets are ready for change.
I would like just to see, some hope. I don't see it now.
Which of those candidates do you think gets the closest to bringing you hope?
I would say Trump.
Absolutely Trump. I have a feeling that he is a person who sticks to his word. He means what he says.
They question what Harris stands for and are not sold on Walz, no matter where he grew up. Back in the Dundee neighborhood of Omaha, the blue dots are in such high demand, Jason Brown ran out of spray paint. Orders are stacking up, he said, and not only from Democrats, but from independents who may decide the election.
It doesn't mean, oh my God, I've become a Democrat. No, you're voting for what you feel is right for the future.
Turning to the weather, summer might be winding down, but it doesn't feel that way for many today. It's the warmest day of the week for a lot of folks in Nebraska, while a potentially record-setting heat wave is baking the Northwest. And as Amy Kiley reports, forecasters think that will be sticking around through at least Friday.
It really does help.
Tens of millions of Americans are under heat alerts today as the Southwest faces record-setting temperatures.
I got here and I started burning and melting away. I was about 50 more pounds when I first got here, but now I'm a little bit lighter.
A heat wave settling in there is no joke, and it's set to stick around for days.
Coming here earlier, and then for the rest of the day, staying home where it's air conditioned.
Utility companies say the LA and San Diego power grids are holding up, but they want people to reduce energy use between 4 and 9 p.m.
Crews are prepared to quickly respond to power outages in all weather conditions.
Phoenix is on a record-setting hot streak, marking 100 consecutive days above 100 degrees yesterday.
That's just going to continue. I see no end in sight above 100.
Forecasters say Phoenix could set another record this week with its 55th day above 110 this year. But Labor Day can keep its title as the unofficial end of summer. Parts of the eastern U.S. are cooler than usual for this time of year.
Maybe the first taste of fall, or maybe some apple picking or something like that.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Nebraska's governor, meanwhile, asking for federal assistance to help with recovery from a series of storms that caused damage in eastern Nebraska last month. Governor Jim Pillen made that request Tuesday. The storms on July 31st and August 1st caused damage in Cass, Douglas, Lancaster, Sarpy, and Saunders counties. State emergency officials estimate the series of storms did over $34 million worth of damage. This was that storm system that knocked out power to over 250,000 Nebraskans, including some in Omaha and Lincoln who were in the dark for almost a week. If approved, this would be the fourth federal disaster declaration for severe storms in Nebraska this year. A southeast Nebraska waste hauler is picking up another area community as a customer, but not without some concerns. Doug Kennedy has more.
Midwest Area Refuse Solutions, or MARS, has been selected by the village of DeWitt in Saline County to provide garbage hauling service. The hauler's bid was one of 3 submitted to the village that has roughly 225 customers. The Beatrice City Council has approved the agreement. City Administrator Tobias Templemeyer says it's for 5 years and would begin in January.
Their residential gets billed $16.50. Their commercial is the same as the city of Beatrice. Other than that, the contract is essentially identical to all the other ones with the other villages that we serve.
The council's vote was 6-1, with Councilman Dwayne Rue objecting over the monthly charge that would be instituted for DeWitt residents and the fact those rates would hold steady for the first 3 years of the agreement.
That's uncalled for. Everything else has been a year, and we're going to let them pay $16.50 for 3 years, when we're paying $20 per person in Beatrice.
Rue also felt that a public entity such as the city should not be competing with private business. Templemeyer says that's not unusual in Nebraska. He cites public power as a prime example. Rue wanted to amend the agreement to increase the DeWitt monthly charge to $20, but Templemeyer said that would result in Mars not getting the contract. Mars already collects trash from rural areas around DeWitt. Those customers are paying $23 a month in the hauler's service area. From Beatrice, Doug Kennedy, News Channel, Nebraska.
And finally, we're nowhere near March Madness, but Nebraskans do have a bracket to fill out. The Nebraska Chamber of Commerce announced the 16 Nebraska businesses in the second annual Coolest Thing Made in Nebraska contest. It's hosted by the State Chamber and the Nebraska Manufacturing Alliance to highlight products built in Nebraska. Last year's inaugural winner, an all-terrain wheelchair by Rocket Mobility of Columbus. Nebraskans will get to vote on the product in a bracket-style competition beginning next week on the Manufacturing Alliance's website. In the meantime, you can stay up to date with the very latest by heading to our website, newschannelnebraska.com. Click on the news tab there. You can also follow us on X, find us there also, and like us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. This is News Channel Nebraska.